Hello future tech leaders, I'm Sindhuja. Based on my own experience, I know that learning the right skills can shape our future. What if I say learning was as thrilled as the tech world itself? There we go. A cloud foundation, that's exactly what you will experience. From day one, you will be immersed in the interactive sessions and expert-led courses that covers most of the widely used technologies in the zone of data science to cloud computing, which brings more light to the life of a techie. I'm so excited to help you and unlock the true potential of a technology. Well, then why to wait? Let's see what it unfolds.
Our part, which was remaining, was we went with getting or doing the entity views as well. We went ahead, we created these ones. We went ahead and created the transformations as well. And in the transformations, we saw that what are direct transformations and what is cleans function. In the cleans function, we went ahead and created the registry ID validations correct. What it does is these. All things are done. We will be seeing how this will work as well today. Later part which remains is tasks extensions. Task cache is somewhere what we can say that these are utilized for two purposes. In tasks there is triggers. Over here you can see that there are few default triggers which we have created. And these default triggers are utilized to create or to have an update using all the business entities with all the rules. Which rule will be utilized to create the records by utilizing the business entity. That is what we decide over here, either update or anything. We can go ahead and use in a single create update. We can utilize all those things that I can go ahead, utilize that in create itself, the update can be there. In create event, I can go ahead and do a modify hierarchy or match B as well. But why we went ahead and created different? Different now is that we can have a, if there is any workflow to be triggered. We can utilize all these triggers in a separate ways. That is why we have created all these things as differently. Otherwise, these all triggers will be utilized to use as over here. You can see when we go ahead and do a create, there is a file attachment tasks and there is, you can see these templates. These templates are utilized by the active was workflow by the name of that. But what all things will be by default? You can go ahead and customize it in the active was. It is nowhere to be utilized in the UI now. It is all the part which will be utilized by the active was workflow. Like the template and the task site, these two things will be utilized by workflows. Triggers on the second thing are utilized by both. Triggers are also utilized for creating or for starting up the workflow or to utilize it by default. Workflows as well, which are internal, which will let you update or create anything. Without any approval process. Triggers are majorly utilized for two purposes, either to start the workflow or to have an event or to have a functionality to go ahead and create the records. Otherwise, your E360 will be only utilized for update for reading the records. If we go over here in E360, there are various applications which have been created. In new, I can see party table over here, party entity. Why? Because in over here we have create B and all the roles are there. And the business entity is only party. If I remove this particular business entity from over here, then all the business entities which are over here will be showcased. Let's see that. We'll just go ahead, delete the path, which means it will have. If you are not going ahead and stating anything over here, which means all the things which are there will be showcased. We'll just go ahead, close this up for a second. That all the cache will be removed and the data will be synced. The configuration will be synced. We'll go into party application. We'll go into new. Let's see, all these business entities have came up now. Otherwise, you are only having party. This the task. In the task, the triggers are utilized for all these purposes. But if you go ahead and state that in this particular trigger, let's say in the create, I want to start the workbook, it will ask me which template you want to use, which task type it will be utilizing. What is the task kind? It will be a review, merge, which one it will be using. What is the active process name or the workflow name which will be starting up? All these things will be configured just for starting the workflow. What workflow will be started? Tasks are majorly utilized for these purposes. And each thing have their own events in order. And rules, we have gone ahead and used star. Otherwise, we can have a different rules. Whatever rules are there, we can utilize that particular rule. And in that rule, what all business entities, they can go ahead and create or update or modify. That is what it is used for. Any question over here? This will be always used to initiate those active workflows. If I am not specifying that this will start a workflow, this will be utilizing the internal algorithm to do that particular event for you. Otherwise, you cannot go ahead and utilize it for the purpose. In the active OS, we are utilizing this particular event. That's what you are telling. The calling kind of calling. By this event, we will be calling the workflows. You have any example to show, like the active OS, how they will be calling? Let's say whenever we are creating a record. Let's say if I go over here, I will go into party and I'll say anything which I'm going ahead and creating and then saving it. Should it save directly or should it call a workflow? You got that? You can say, let's say I'm going ahead with this. Status is, let's say, active. Would be A, this should be. Let's say, last name is. First name should be, let's say, and let's say we go ahead, create the city as. You just see 1, 2, 3. Main Street. And we'll just go ahead and use the pantry. Over here, when I go ahead and save, this record will be going ahead and getting inserted into that it will be based on. See now, this record has been already inserted. I can go ahead and edit it as well. This has got its party ID. Showcasing the raw idea of this particular thing. It directly went ahead and inserted in the base object. But do we want a direct insertion or do we want a workflow to be initiated whenever we go ahead and save? That is what we go ahead and do over here if that particular event is triggered. Does it need to go ahead and update a particular workflow or to start a workflow, or does it directly go ahead and without any workflows? We go ahead and say that is what we are going over here. I suppose if we are not calling any active workflow, you told me that internal algorithm can be utilized. I believe this active was, as you mentioned. I think it will go to that approval flow, those guys. When you say, if it is handled in this internal subgroup, can you just give some scenarios like what all things will be done or how? It won't utilize your hub state indicator as 0 pending or anything. It will directly go ahead and it will just go over there. These things are utilized. Let's say my data manager who is approving, he is going ahead and updating any record. There is no supervisor in front of him. Basically what he'll do, he'll just go ahead, update any attribute and he'll just go save. That's it. Once you go ahead and save, it will just go ahead and save that particular record. It will not trigger any work because he does not need any superior's approval to go ahead and approve it. Whereas a data Steve needs a manager's approval. What we'll do over here is in the update, we'll go ahead and use the role as data Steve rather than using a data manager. Any data manager, if he is going ahead and updating the record, there is no work which will be updated, which will be created for him. We'll have two different triggers. One trigger would be there, which will be starting the workflow, and the other will be there, which will not be starting the workflow. And all these things will be there with different role types. My question was, say other than this active workflows. You told it that that is not only the single scenario. Even this can be utilized in this internal things also. Yes, this is the one that I went ahead and created a record. It will call the internal algorithm that there is no work which is being needed. It will go ahead and skip all that part and it will go ahead and save it. Oh, then that case there won't be any triggers called. Trigger is called, but the trigger states that you don't have to go ahead and start any workflow. You can skip that part and directly update that record. That is the trigger. Let's say how many records do we have? We'll just go ahead and see that. We'll just go ahead and search over here. Any party search that will get a registry ID. Any registry ID will be defined for us. You can see there are two registry IDs. I can go ahead and use this one as well. I can go ahead and update this registry ID and will go ahead and put this registry ID in place. What will go ahead? I'm just stating that how this particular we went ahead and did the transformation validation. That will work. I'll just do like this and save it. It will just state validation. Registry ID is already present in request specified satisfied condition of the validation. It will discard that. But if I just go ahead and do any updates over here, it will let me save that. But from now on, if I go ahead and update any record, anything if you say, unless and until I'm updating using this one, it will not be there. Any changes how it will showcases. It showcases with this particular part. Any update. There is anything which is being changed. The change attribute will be showcased around that. But if that particular validation rule have gone through and we have put up in the views, then this particular registry ID will have gone ahead and we will be getting every single time will be getting an issue because it would be getting the value from it because our lens function or the validation rule does not see that. Is it the same party idea? It would be giving us issues for us. The validation rule would have a loop in the views, but now it will not trigger any validation rule unless and until that attribute is being updated. That is where our updates, edits, and how the validation rule will be showcased to us. Now coming back over here, other than tasks, we have extensions and extensions. We have two things. One is dash provider and the other three are basically utilized for external calls. As I stated earlier, that if there are validations which are needed and where the lens functions are having a limitation, We will go ahead and set up the external validation. How we will be going ahead and using the external validation. We first go ahead create a whistle. We cannot create any whistle over here because it goes ahead and verifies. We create a whistle over here with a name and a URL. This URL will be verified and service XML namespace will be populated automatically. Then once this is being created, we go ahead and create the SOAP services which utilizes your whistle file. See this one over here. Once you just select the whistle, all these things will be auto-populated. And once these things are there, then we go ahead and create the external calls. In these external calls, we'll say which particular business entity needs to go through. Which does the SAP service, which particular operation and what on service phase. Service phase means we used to have a before read or after read or when it will need it to be done. And all the business entities which are needed to go through that external validations. That is how we go ahead and configure it. Whereas the NAS provider is data as a service provider, over here we will be utilizing what all. This is, we are trying to go ahead and use what all SOAP services will be utilizing, what all the business entities. We are going ahead and showcasing that this NAS provider will be utilizing which one and what source system. To read that particular record, when we use business entity services, we use the NAS providers to read and search, if that is the only thing which is required. But if we have to do all the CRD operations, then we use direct IP calls using the business entities. Question. Any question space? No, nothing from my side. That is where these extensions will be used. These NAS provider will be utilized, you can say 0.21%. And all your projects, it will be 0.1% or maximum it will be 1% of project which uses NAS providers. And there are 10 to 15% of the projects which will utilize your external call validation. Rest 85% of your projects will never use your extensions. Only 10% of the projects will be not using any workflows. Whereas all the 92% will be utilizing your workflows. That is what business entity part is there for. And finally, do not forget to like, share and subscribe to our channel.